This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present a collection of fandoms and exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content, and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers surrounding the 2026 movie Wuthering Heights with mentions of Moulin Rouge, Devil Wears Prada, Big Fish, and ACOTAR. For full list, please see show notes.
Hi everybody, welcome to ACOFAE, your weekly deep dive into the fantasy, literature, and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are starting the conversation about women in media.
And I think it's probably fair to say, we're going to call this Volume 1, because as we know, the conversation never ends, media never ends, patriarchy hasn't ended yet, so this conversation will continuously be happening. But I think part of the conversation, we were kind of getting fired up as early as all the time, obviously, if you've been following us as a podcast, but just about the conversation of women in media this year alone. It really felt like it started with when the lead up to Wuthering Heights promo, Wuthering Heights being released. We've been having this conversation offline with each other. People hated it. And it's just one of those ongoing conversations of women can't like anything. But initially it felt like people were so quick to hate Wuthering Heights. Obviously, we're speaking of the Warner Brothers, Margot Robbie, Jacob Elordi version that was released in February 2026. And it took me a while with my social algorithm. I was like, I had to keep scrolling. Or I was wondering, am I not seeing something? Because I loved it. You had to watch it. You got to watch it the next day, just the way our schedules had worked out. And we were like, thankfully got to the part where people were loving it. But I was feeling kind of dumb. I was like, did I not watch the same movie? I'm thinking there wasn't, I don't know, like I didn't have a critical analysis on it.
Well, let's talk about that. Okay. Wuthering Heights 2026. I'm looking at my ticket. I have my ticket. It's right here. You know, I hoard my tickets. I saw this February 15th, 2026. My seat was G6. I saw it at 3:15 in Auditorium 10. It was magnificent. And I saw it the day after Jessica Marie. And Jessica Marie, I remember having this conversation with you, the conversation that you're referencing, and you said to me, "Oh, I'm so glad you agree." You felt this like relief that I loved this thing because you loved this thing and no one else around you is loving this thing. And you said to me very specifically, this is how you must have felt when Moulin Rouge came out. Mm-hmm. And it was that feeling of like, I saw art. I saw something that changed my life. What is wrong with everybody?
And then you start questioning yourself. It must be me. Something is wrong with me because I'm having this like deep critical analysis, or so I think, about this as art. The just like every facet of it, between the cinematography and the costuming. And I mean, I know we talked about it even with in our Devil Wears Prada episode, that costumes and designers and fashion is a form of rebellion and is a level of art. We wear it every day, and that's what you were seeing portrayed. And again, these are just like small in some of my thoughts with Wuthering Heights, but I felt like I was the dumb one. And I feel like that also happens a lot with women. You know, we've had the conversation over and over again. Women can't like anything. And that's what this felt like. I loved this thing and I was being made to feel little because I loved it so much.
And let's expand on that a little bit more. And just, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said I was going to keep all my feelings for the podcast. This is my feeling. These are my feelings. When I watched this movie, which is now on HBO, whatever. I mean, it's there. Go watch it. It's amazing. When I watched this movie, I can't breathe. And watching it now, because I watched it in the theater one time and I always meant to go back because they had it in IMAX and I never got to. But now watching it when I know the music, because I didn't know the music before. I know the music now. I know Charlie's soundtrack to it now. And I know how the music makes me feel. Watching it back now, I can't breathe. It is breathtaking in so many different ways. I feel so many different things. Just to do the stereotypical stuff, when Jacob lifts her by her corset, just now when I was watching it, my head was in my hands and I was staring at the screen and I couldn't breathe. But later on, when Kathy sits on the eggs, my entire body goes cold.
I just got chills. Like, that scene shakes you.
Like my whole body goes cold and you're just like on alert. You're like, oh my God. And then like all the consequences of that happens. That is the thing. So to expand on what you're saying, like women in media, why did people not like Wuthering Heights? In my humble opinion, I guess, you feel so many things in this movie and people, especially nowadays, don't like to feel, are not in a place to feel and are uncomfortable, which is what I think a lot of it more is, very uncomfortable with these feelings, because I distinctly remember the commentary of like, oh my God, Jacob Elordi sat on the eggs. Why did he run his fingers through the yolk? Grow up, child. Grow up. We know what he's we know what he's doing, sliding that through his fingers, and we know this. But you know that isn't. That is also part of it is media literacy and metaphor, all these things.
Symbolism.
All of these things that they teach you in school, but I guess it's just arts, support and arts education. But it is all of these feelings that it evokes. When the dad is beating on Heathcliff, that is a feeling. And then like later, which I caught on the, I'm caught like I can't, that was another thing. I can't look away from this movie. I am glued to it. So this time, instead of focusing on Jacob's enormous hands shielding Margot's eyes, I actually listened to what he said. And he said, essentially, I'd beat the shit out of your dad, but you're the only reason that I haven't. So like, do you give me permission? And she's like, I mean, you've got to be better because I would give you permission. You have to be the better of both of us, like the like more upstanding for the both of us, which I didn't get on the first time because I was just like fucking staring at him. But like, again, all of these feelings that are drenched in, I just remembered something fantastic that is drenched in all of this color and all of these, landscapes and all of this mood lighting. Now, Jess, you said correctly that everybody that was vocal about this in the very beginning, very similar to Taylor Swift, by the way. The first 2 weeks are absolutely like horrific, and then people come around. But what I want to point out before we move on from Wuthering Heights specifically, because that's what kind of spurred Jess's passion about this, is that Wuthering Heights specifically has a lot of Tim Burton-esque elements, and nobody is looking at Tim Burton. Okay. Now, we know he's a fucking creep. We know this. This is film, strictly film, okay? You're looking at his movies and nobody's saying, girly, ew, I don't like it. It's too, ew, it's too, any of this. It's not any of that. It's the same spindly trees. It's the same saturated. Go watch Big Fish and then go watch Wuthering Heights and then come fucking talk to me and let's discuss filmmaking only. Not personal stuff. Tim Burton's a fucking creep. Okay. It is miraculous that was never brought up in the conversation. The conversation was, this is a girly movie. It sucks. And these are all the reasons. Specifically, the review of the smooth-brained Wuthering Heights.
Oh, the chicken cutlet one. I remember that.
Remember?
Yes. Yes. Well, I think that it's again, the overall conversation too is that there is always a critique with when women are at the helm, because if you did a chart of a lot of these similar things, just like you're saying now with Wuthering Heights and Big Fish, and then, you know, just different filmmakers at the helm, it's always the women that are getting critiqued. Always. And this is like an ongoing conversation with so many other things in media, because even like you had brought up Taylor Swift. It's another perfect example. I'll use Taylor Swift and like Swifties, but it's fandoms in general, the conversation that women are meant to feel, and society says minimizes women in fandoms. But we just spoke with our economist talking about Swiftynomics, how they have led the economy in following this. Nobody says the same thing about men being fans of sports, and they're going, oh, you're going to see that artist multiple times. You have season tickets. If my favorite artist had season tickets, you bet your ass I would have season tickets for that artist.
Absolutely.
But I am, you know, us as women are hated on, but that same critique is not happening with men.
No. And let's also remember that Wuthering Heights was originally published under a male name, because that's how women got published back in the day. That's just, and everybody was like, oh, a man. And then it was like, oh, a woman. Oh.
All the accolades when it was a man, which is really interesting because even today, it came on, I don't know if anybody's familiar with The Blacklist. The Blacklist is a site in entertainment where a lot of writers will submit their...
The Blacklist is a TV show with James Spader that used to fucking rock and now kind of sucks.
I was like, wait, did I say something so wrong?
It's very funny. The first few seasons of that show are really good, and then it just dives off a cliff, but James Spader is fantastic in that. Sorry, continue.
No, it's fine. But it is a site that a lot of people in the industry, especially if you're a writer, will submit their scripts. And then you have other agents and managers and studio execs who are familiar with this site, and they're trying to go through scripts of like what a studio might pick up, what a streaming service might pick up. But they recently, or maybe not recently, but part of their process was like everything was being submitted anonymously at some point, and then they started pulling demographics, and they had found out that women consistently only knew how to submit good scripts, but the men were on a bell curve where they would be like, okay, here's some really strong ones, here's a lot of flops, and then here's some in the middle. And then it came, you know, through this research that they were like, when they were collating data, it was like women don't know how to fail because they know the importance of how strong their work has to be. So there isn't this commentary of, oh, this is why we can't have women at the helm. This is why we can't have women writers, or because that will be the same reason. And this is like a lot of intersectionality too with this conversation, that if a marginalized group isn't performing well, it's an immediate write-off. So everything has to be strong from the get-go. When they were having the counterparts, they would just submit anything and hit the end, send.
Well, and we're talking about women and their high bar for just being excellent, right?
Ourselves. Like, we have high standards and we meet them. So why isn't anybody else? The age-old conversation.
The age-old conversation. Also, men fail upwards. That's also part of it. Like, you know, that's how they get to and stay in power, though it might seem like they are incompetent. But let's take a step back. Let's talk about women in media. Let's talk about pop culture. I learned something today about pop culture that I didn't know, just very specific terminology. Because again, as I will always say, the people yearn for pop-up video. I think we yearn for, this is the 80s, this is the 90s, these are the 2000s. Oh,
I would love one for like now, the 2010s.
Yeah, the 2010s. That'd be excellent. Get Hal and all the Ian Michael Black and all those people. Get them all back in VH1 and get them doing that, because I would like to learn some of these facts. But I learned today the difference between high pop culture and low pop culture. So let's talk about it. High pop culture represents arts and tastes of the intellectual elite. Opera, ballet, classical literature offer requiring education or wealth to fully appreciate. Low pop culture is mainstream, mass-produced entertainment employed by the general public. Pop music, sitcoms, blockbuster movies, etc. Now we have that information, which I was like unaware of, but when you put it out like that, obviously, of course. I
mean, it's the whole highbrow, lowbrow conversation.
Exactly. I mean, Timmy has highlighted this conversation for everybody. You know, Tim, what are we doing? Just hush and talk about Dune. We don't need to talk about this. But that I found to be very interesting. Now keep that in our heads. So we subconsciously like rank all of these things into like high pop culture and low pop culture, even though we don't know terms like that. Right. And female interests, the majority of female interests tend to track towards the bottom of the pop culture because it's like mass produced, right? Women are busy. We're with the pop culture. We are with what is mainstream. We are driving the economy for what is popular. So these niche things are not so kind of like focused. We are focused on like the big, kind of like the big moving parts, which I found very interesting. And that, so again, we women focus on the big economic parts of this driving the economy because we are focused on all these popular things, okay, are looked down upon for driving the economy because of our interests.
Which that's what I was just going to follow up with, which is just a wild, like that sentence alone. We drive the economy, and driving the economy is considered low pop culture. However, you follow up with any type of conversation about economics, Bloomberg, like I'm going to just like business analysts, Fast Company, all of those websites, they lean towards a predominantly white male space. So you can have those and are considered highbrow, right? And again, not saying we're agreeing with this, but that's how those press outlets are positioned. Whereas when it's centered around women, it's considered lowbrow. Fuck! I'm so mad.
I'm referencing specifically an article from her campus, and this is Why Can't Girls Like Anything? This is from February 10th, 2021, by Minalingo, and this person is just talking about like the high and low pop culture, why it is just so difficult, but using specifically the example of Visco girls and using this as like this trend, this rising popular trend that was mostly women and girls, and how it was this interest that they had. It was easily identifiable. It had various accessories that were geared towards it. It drove the economy. It was mass produced, widely popular. And then everybody started to fucking hate those people, started to make fun of those people, and then it killed that trend. And all of that stuff kind of faded into other trends, other things. And I find that so interesting. You don't talk about Visco girls anymore. That is just kind of poof. It's gone. But you remember that?
I do. And like the accessories, like remember, I mean, even with the Stanley Cup, like
Cups, exactly.
Like, it was the same thing. And when it became like this mass psychosis for people camping out, again, people degraded it. And you know, you see that shift with books and media. We see that with specifically not just the romance genre, the fantasy and romantasy genre. Because as we know, taking a step back away from fantasy and romantasy, romance is the driving genre in publicity. And it's consistently shitted on. also found out within the last 2 weeks, I had no idea, but as I was like hearing it be explained, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Publishers started putting, and I just found this out like 2 weeks ago. I'm sure there are people who haven't heard yet either, and I hope you have. And if so, like now we're educating everybody. Publishers put romance books in grocery stores because women didn't have control of their finances. If we remember, women didn't have control of their finances until the late 70s. So they were giving products for women to have ownership of without their husband looking. They could look at the grocery receipt and it says like total X without it being itemized. So there was like a sense of ownership that a woman had some piece to herself in her craziness where she's being controlled. And we just, again, it's only, it was only the 70s. It's just minimized. And then you have that same conversation happening with romantasy where it's dumbed down because it became popular that, it's just fairy smut. When, as we know, and we've talked about this on the podcast, there are so many, varieties and genres and types of books, especially even, within all genres. But you have romantasy, you have quote unquote fairy smut, you have erotica, you have fantasy or romantasy with like sensual moments. But to minimize the conversation and something that women like and something that, again, is driving the economy and quite honestly continues to save the economy, or not economy necessarily, but the book publishing industry, women are looked down upon because it's all categorized under fairy smut. And I'll even read something that like really pissed me off. It was from BBC. And this was actually not long ago. This was published by a man, Neil Armstrong, on April 1st, 2026. And the headline is Complex, Dangerous, and Sexual Beings, the Centuries-Old Origins of Current Fairy Fiction. And I'm just going to read like an excerpt but we'll have the link in the show notes, but just to see like how it's being positioned. The fairies and fairy romantasy or erotic fae fiction, which already, pisses me off because now you, once again, to go back to what I just said, is you are summarizing the entire romantasy genre as erotic fae fiction. Are not the glittery do-gooding sprites of children's stories. They are dangerous, shape-shifting spirits, just as they were centuries old. And centuries-old folklore, according to a new book about fairy history. From the ancient Nordic fairy forests and the 15th century legend of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, fairy folklore is full of deception and seduction. The 2 new novels were announced in the romantasy series A Court of Thorns and Roses, and immediately the share price of the book's publishing house soared by an astonishing 20%. So again, I'll go back. We're going back to the economy and how we're driving sales and stocks. The series author, Sarah J. Maas, is a very big deal in publishing, with her book translated in over 40 languages. It gives some stats. And then it continues the next paragraph. They are complex, dangerous sexual beings, which is exactly what the fairies of folklore were originally like. And it's another thing that frustrates me. And I know there's a lot of people who don't like Sarah J. Maas, but I will say, take her out of it. Her books aren't the only one in the genre that this conversation is happening about.
See, as Jess was talking, I had just been sent a link that is completely relevant by editor Sam. And this is a link to a podcast that editor Sam listens to. It's called The Book Club, and it's a recent episode, May 4th, 2026. It's called A Court of Thorns and Roses. What is it? Fairy smut or fantasy sensation?
Sam, I'm going to yell at you if I don't know what it's about.
Yeah. And then the tagline is, how is ACOTAR inspired by traditional folklore? Why has the novel become such a mass sensation? And what is romantasy? And, they're British, the book club. They're a little bit older. I've listened to them before, and I just messaged Sam and I told him I don't want to listen to them shit on this book. And I don't. And I don't, because I know that when a man is going to say, what is romantasy, it's going to turn into something that, intentional on his point or not, is going to be condescending and sexist. And it's just not something that I'm interested in engaging in at any level, especially when I'm looking at these numbers, $1.44 billion in annual revenue, romantasy, as of May 2023, with 52% year-over-year growth in print sales. What the fuck is anybody on about, honestly? I just find it fascinating that this thing that women have taken a hold of and carved out, like, you know, specific genres and subgenres and niches, and like finally embracing all of these like little sides of themselves that we have pushed away since we were kids, and really embracing all of this. And we're just getting beaten back like time and time again by the opinions of people that don't matter, but who are so loud that it is impossible to ignore. It is just so frustrating. And one of the articles that I was reading right here is, why can't girls enjoy anything without being criticized? This is February 19th, 2021 from the Lexington Line. This is, you know, but one of the examples is growing up when One Direction was becoming popular and being embarrassed about liking One Direction, because when you said it, what was the immediate response? Oh, they're gay. You're gay. They're gay. Remember? Time, place, context, slang.
Yeah, they use queer sexuality as an insult. Absolutely.
As an insult. So then you're like, oh my God. Well, then I've got that coming for, you know, like all of this stuff. Everything that a girl likes is, you know, as soon as I express it, I'm getting yelled at with all of these like horrible things. And of course, I think that they're horrible because it's making me feel bad. And so I'm associating the words with the feeling and this action. So it's creating like all of this, you know, like stigma, this trauma, these feelings around these interests that I had. Not me specifically, but like you get it, like as a child. So as an adult, when you are secure enough to go back and like really dive into all of this, and you're old enough to really ignore all of the like outside kind of voices, you are still bombarded by the media, just like when in Wuthering Heights. It is impossible to escape this type of criticism. It is just wild shit, honestly. But I think it all comes back, and this is me, again, my opinion, it all comes back to internalized misogyny, I think, on everybody's part. And I have a really fantastic article called Me, Taylor Swift, and Internalized Misogyny, a 14-year journey of learning to admit I enjoy Taylor's music.
I was going to say you have to send this to me, but I already know it's going to be in the show notes because continue, because I'll have a follow-up for here.
And it is a very long article about somebody that goes through her entire catalog and just like deconstructs where they were when it came out, what they were feeling, why the interest wasn't there, why the feelings were there, you know, why everything. And then realizing that it was all internalized misogyny, and it was this feeling that I need to be not like other girls. I need to be, you know, different. I need to be like the pick-me girl, and how that terminology has kind of turned on its head. And at one point, you know, I would say peak new girl, that was like a good thing. Like, I'm not like, I'm quirky, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. That was like its own kind of thing. But now that has morphed into this, like, I'm not like other girls because you hate other girls, like, kind of conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, I mean, we've discussed it on both of our Taylor Swift themed episodes. I know we did it with our TTPD and our Life of a Showgirl. But even as far back, I think it was like maybe between like episodes 4 and 6, our villains episode was me admitting that I've had a journey of like unlearning internalized misogyny that I had towards Taylor Swift. I mean, I was on the scene crying with my teardrops on my guitar and Tim McGraw, just like her, so to have that blip where I felt like, oh, I can't be like other girls. I'm so different. Like that was its own conversation. And now I fully embrace it. But she's also the person when you're talking about, there's an article on Elle, and it's called Here's Why Men Love Hating on the Things Women Enjoy. They take an excerpt from an interview with Taylor Swift, and direct quote, she goes, if a guy shares his experience in writing, he's brave. And if a woman shares her experience in writing, she's oversharing, she's over emotional, she's going to be crazy. She's divulging all this information. The labels that are associated with women in media continue to happen, which is just like, it frustrates me beyond belief. I think a lot of people, but I think that the fact that the conversation is even being had so much more openly and publicly is just as important.
It is just as important. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to reference, like, again, Gamergate and how men just can't let women have anything. There is a genre of games like cozy games, right? Cozy, sweet, like relaxing.
Like
Animal Farm.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like Animal Farm, like those type of games, like really low stakes, like relaxing games, really, typically like girly games, whatever. But when a girl goes into a Call of Duty space and she gets harassed and they say, go back to Animal Farm, go back to like, fuck you, dude. So like, there is always going to be this like situation of like men can't handle women in their spaces. And so let's say like their spaces. It's air quotes. It's predominantly male spaces, but that does not mean it's their space. And that's why I love when women go into that male dominated space and completely make them eat shit. And they just walk into a room, annihilate things, and then walk right out without saying a peep. It's my favorite thing. Sometimes it's just like, what? I understand the appeal of watching people game. I'm using this example because I am referencing the article, Women Can't Enjoy Anything, the Subtle Misogyny Implicit in Criticism of Female Interests. This is by Colette Fountain. This is published in February 2021. And really specifically, just because I thought this was a really interesting example, because if we bring it back to books, I mean, we're talking about media, but we're talking about books, is John Green, everything is tuberculosis. John Green, though, wrote A Fault in Our Stars. That movie grossed over 300 million worldwide. You know what they say about John Green, you big fat pussy. Girls movie. It's bullshit. None of it matters. You wrote just like bullshit girl movie stuff. And that kind of like stigma, again, like, what is it? Searching for Alaska, Finding Alaska, that one too. Girl books. John Green writes girl books, whatever, this man writes girl books. 1, he's a creep. 2, ew, he writes girl books. I just find that really fascinating. 1, unless I'm wrong, he's not a creep. He's a really good guy. And 2, like, he created essentially the manic pixie dream girl. So fuck off, I guess, with you, because that is, such a thing. But it speaks to, referencing this article, it undermines the value of women's opinions and like perpetuates misogynistic ideas regarding the validity of women, all while profiting off of these insecurities and relying on an audience that they simultaneously criticize for being like sheep. And I find that to be interesting too, especially when you're talking about like women, like Harry Styles, primarily like female audience, right? Sheep, all of them are sheep. I just find it fascinating that so many people can love something and so many people can also just be so loud in their hatred of it, but have that split be like, okay, but it's going to be something that women really love. Right?
And it's funny because it's like, I think there was an interview with Margot Robbie. And she has been open in this conversation where I almost forgot his name and I knew people were going to kill me. Where basically Christopher Nolan's team was like, you need to move Barbie. We're coming out that day with the release of Oppenheimer. And she had shared this story, I know more recently, with Wuthering Heights Press. She goes, you move it. You as a white man have the audacity, but you're asking me because you're threatened. Arguably, most studios will shift their dates around when other studios will have like competing release dates. But then others, when they think, look, it's a completely different genre, it's a completely different market, it doesn't matter. It was the first time that Margot had said, you feel threatened. Let them both come out on the same day. And society made it what it was, this pop culture moment in history. But I think it's just like the ongoing conversation of we think we're better than you because men hate women. Like when women say they hate men, we're saying it that we hate them, yes, but like it's more the concept we're hating the patriarchy and everything that comes with it. I don't think men think the same. I think when they say they hate women, they actually hate women.
Yeah. And something you talk about the movie, something else that we should really talk about too is a quote that, again, I'm going to pull from this article, Women Can't Enjoy Anything, about hobbies and how men hate women's hobbies. But men have hobbies. Let me tell you. Right? But men hate women's hobbies. Why? So many reasons. One, it takes their attention away from them, from the household, from being busy, from, making their life easier and better. It enriches a woman. It gives her a sense of fulfillment and community that she might not get anywhere else. So quoting this article, interests and hobbies form such a significant part of our identities of women that to deny the opportunity for self-expression to women is inherently misogynistic. Hobbies like gaming are far more explicitly misogynistic, something which makes the community far less appealing to those interested in it, while music industry tends to be far more subtly misogynistic, undermining women all while relying on them as consumers. So I do find that very interesting, specifically referencing the music industry, because, I mean, there's so much going on in the music industry too. But I just think about Josie and the Pussycats and like how like there's so much going on there, and then throw in all the misogyny on top of it. Like, and to add on to your point, just to, yes, I agree with you 100% that like we are talking about like misogyny, we're talking about like the patriarchy, all of that stuff. I think men just want to kill us. So I think that is, and it's just a very distinct difference between what is going on there. But that also speaks to where we are and where we're thinking, bigger picture, broader perspective. Narrow scope, one focus.
Well, even when, I was going to, there was a TED Talk that I was watching before we started. Statistically, and studies show how well women perform when, it was like how well women perform if they don't have necessarily like a romantic focus. Like there are studies done if men have never been in a romantic relationship, they channel that hurt and anger with like incel culture, right? Whereas if women don't find romance, in their relationships, a lot of women tend to like, okay, well, I'm going to foster this into my friendships, foster this into a hobby, foster this into my education, into my professional career. I'm going to create a community that I want. And I feel like almost like you said, almost on the grander scheme of things, we always say that people yearn for community. We yearn for camaraderie, but women are vocal about that. And we'll share our feelings. And then men, because of the patriarchy, they are taught to like push their feelings down. So for a man to like admit that, I feel in the culture that we live in, that's not going to be as easy. How many men really say like, I really want a bro hug. I really want to be, I really miss a community. You don't see that happen, especially outside of like high school settings, because it's almost as if high school is like that last moment, especially if they are in organized sports.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh, I think with a counter argument, please. I love to be educated.
No, absolutely, yes. As you were speaking, I was thinking about this article that I read, and I cannot find it, but I will by the time this episode publishes. It is from the women in the UN. And it is about the importance of us women not dismissing the manosphere. And the manosphere being this like tangible online presence that the men have gotten themselves into, because they are searching for community, right? And they have, and I learned this today, they've divided themselves like into all of these like little subcategories. It's like incel, and then it's like this one and this one and this one, all these like horrible with things.
There was like things beyond incel that I had no idea existed. I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
I can't even remember the word because it's so out of my vocabulary.
Yeah. Just horrible stuff. I am trying to find specifically the article that I was looking at. I will find it. But it was talking about how we can't dismiss this, and how we find it, like when you say it, it sounds silly. It sounds stupid. But like this is a place that there was just that like online like sexual assault class that all those men signed up for.
Yes, I saw that. And like how to do it, and it was like how many people who were married and in relationships, and then somebody tried to say like, oh, the statistic wasn't that high. That was only in February. Oh, only in February. Okay.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous, and so we have to like understand that, and we have to kind of work within that to dismantle it, which again, like, why do we have to do, why can't, but just to say that, like, it's just this other thing that we need to be aware of. And I think they're right. We do need to be like very, very aware that this like creepy situation exists. And that like the reason that, what was just something where like all of the I
was going to ask about, did you see the elevator thing with the one girl and all of that boy?
Absolutely, yes. And she didn't feel safe. So she's allowed. She was, like.
And they mocked her.
Of course they did. Cause that's funny. That makes them feel a certain way. Oh, you're so good, Jess. That's my point. It makes them feel a certain way that they like. And they get like comfortable with. And
that's the disgusting part. It's not just a sense of superiority. It's the, I'm invoking fear. And that part is terrifying. It's not just I'm better than you. It's, I make you feel small. You're scared of me. You should be scared. And that, like, I'm sorry, but I'm not. We, again, like, I think this is another thing that's falling back to women, are responsible for those boys in that. Like, you have to assume. And of course you're like, that's not how, I'm sure I'd like to think you didn't raise him like that. But now that you know, do something about it.
Well, and let's circle back to what I said about Wuthering Heights too, and about feelings, is that men really hated that movie because they were so uncomfortable. Why? Oh, Jay, they're just there for Jay. It's so much more than just Jacob looks good. It is so much more, but you can't get past that because you're feeling a certain way about it. You're feeling a weird masculine way about what is going on screen. I cannot breathe because my feelings are so complex at every single scene for different reasons. I'm vibrating because of the music. I'm listening to the sounds. I'm watching Margot Robbie be the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life, windswept crying. Like, just phenomenal stuff. I'm staring at the costumes. I'm being swept away. I am being swept away. And you are not.
And there's an idea, like, and you said this earlier about people can be uncomfortable when they don't know how to identify what they're feeling, right? It has to be a level of it. And it's the same level of like when there are some people where you're learning to be comfortable in the silence. You're learning how to be comfortable alone, learning how to be, there are people who will like fall, and there's a bunch of different traumas, and I'm not disregarding them. Believe me, I've been through them my whole life, lots of work and therapy. But all that to say is like you're learning to identify those feelings, being comfortable in the uncomfortable. And people don't know how to be comfortable in the uncomfortable yet. It's work. And when you're not actively putting work in and stopping to question like, where's the root of it? Like even today I was talking to something with my therapist and we just like kept digging and digging and digging. And then I finally said something and she was like, and there it is. And I was like, you can't blame me for feeling like that action. I'll tell you what it is later, Laura. But it was something I was like, yeah, it was like the core of the raw emotion. And when you don't do the work or haven't done the work or don't know how to start doing the work, it's easy to dismiss it. Same thing happened with Babygirl, the A24 film. People were giggling. People were uncomfortable in the theater. And there is so much depth and conversation. I was telling you this last weekend because I had seen the drama by A24. And I've said this to a couple of my friends. They have become the studio that I consistently love to have a conversation. They're the ones who did Everything Everywhere All at Once. One of the greatest movies of all time. Emotionally can only handle it so many times. But you walk out of there just wanting to talk about it because there are so many nuances and they hit certain things. And you might not, where we get excited about, I don't know what this feeling is, but it's really freaking cool. And we have ongoing voice memos. Not everybody, not only do people not know how to identify that with themselves, they might not necessarily have somebody in their life they can work through those things with.
Or a community or anybody to talk to, again, to work through those feelings with and to sit isolated and alone with all of that and have it stew and fester and turn into something weird. Because what did you say? You said, oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I really thought I was going crazy. Like I really didn't. What'd you say? I was like second guessing myself.
I was second guessing myself. I said, I'm so relieved. And you go, you know me, you know this is my shit. And I go, I do. But I doubted it. I doubted myself that I was like in the wrong. And I use wrong in air quotes because that's how I had 24 hours to sit with this thing that I was like, I don't hate it. I've heard all of this commentary and I don't feel dumb. I feel like I got a different conversation out of it. Again, not negating the whitewashing of Heathcliff. I will say I never watched Wuthering Heights. I've never read it. I didn't know that was a big part of the conversation until after the fact.
But that kind of just drives the point, right? Because now you're interested. Now you know. Now you're interested. Now you can go. Now you can look.
Yeah, and the same thing you can say with like Baz Luhrmann. Baz Luhrmann, and I'll say this with Elvis, even though it's not part of this conversation, although you can argue Austin Butler is part of the female gaze, is that I feel like people didn't like that movie. But if you know the history of Elvis and you know the history of Black culture and rock and roll and the music at that time, I left that theater like wanting to go and learn back more about history, even though I knew a little bit. But those are the movies that people are like, I don't like. Why don't you like it? You have to look in a mirror, Well, Jessica Marie, people don't like musicals. You know this.
You know this. You just have to look at Mean Girls.
Oh, Mean Girls musical.
You just have to look at that. People don't like musicals, especially when they don't know that it's going to be a musical. I don't know why you would think Elvis wouldn't be a musical, but Austin Butler, absolutely the female gaze. Go watch him in the pilot thing.
What about Shahara?
Always Shannara. Always Shannara. He's so bad and good in Shannara. Shannara's got so many people in it where you'll go, holy shit, I know that person. Why do they got these ears on? Yeah. But he's real good with Colin Caleb, Dua Lipa's fiance. He's Austin Butler's real good with him in that World War II pilot show. Real homosexual, real great. It's not for the straights. It's not for
honestly, most things shouldn't be anymore.
I don't know how you watch that and go, yeah, straight. Yeah, all of them. Yeah, all of them. No, sir. Absolutely not. There's too much going on there. But I really love your example of Elvis though, Jess, because it kind of just goes to show that like public opinion sways, and it sways so wildly because and you can just talk about this with a lot of things, but me specifically, I remember when Burlesque came out.
Oh, I loved Burlesque.
Right, but like people did not.
It's like I'm sure, and I didn't do my research because I wasn't planning to talk about it. But I don't know. I mean, I don't even think we did it for our Burlesque episode. I don't know if it got a Razzie. I know the critics hate it. I also know it is considered a cult classic through a lot of communities. And how can it not be? You got Cher, you got Christina Aguilera, you got Stanley Tucci. That's all I need. Bye.
And then as you're saying all of that, I go back to Striptease, as I always do. I go back to Striptease and just the misogyny there. Just it's just so much misogyny there. That movie is so good, and it is just shat on left, right, and center. But if you actually took the time to watch it, it is so full of so much rich material that you can just preach to, feminism, out the ass. But because it's because they're naked in it. No. Naked women? Absolutely not.
And it was, for the most part, trigger warning, it's all consensual.
Yes.
It's all consensual. Sex work is work. It is respect. And it's the same conversation that we were having with Wuthering Heights, where Isabella is like in on the gag with Heathcliff, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, like he's grooming her. He's this. She is right where she wants to be. It is a consensual kink style relationship that is being depicted in this version that we watched. I don't know how it's depicted in the book, but everything that is Isabella was down. Yes. And he was explicit in those conversations.
Yeah. He spelled it out. Do you know how this works? Boom, boom.
Are you
boom,
sure
boom,
you
boom,
want
boom.
to? I have
sure?
no emotional connection.
Yeah. Say it out loud. Say it. I need to hear the words. Say the word. You like just fantastic stuff. I think using Wuthering Heights as the primary example here and then having all of these little offshoots is just so delicious.
So fun. I love when we do these.
Well, and again, I'm desperate for one of the movie posters. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get one similar to the Virgin Suicide poster that I have. I just love it so much. But that movie, again, I can't breathe. It is just art. I can't describe it any other way. It deserves to be on the big screen. The computer, the TV doesn't do it justice.
I was going to say, I feel like it's not enough.
It's not. You need it. You need it high def. You need the music. You need to hear the swelling. And even though I had it on a small screen, I still felt all of these emotions. And I remember in the theater, I had a fantastic theater crowd. Silence. And then when, the eggs gasps, the corset was gasps. It was a wonderful audience, sobbing at the end, absolutely sobbing. Get the doctor. I do, before we wrap, want to touch on the fact that, like, obviously Wuthering Heights was a hit despite all of this. It made back its budget, and it does depict like a horrifically toxic relationship. Let's not shy away from this like toxic relationship. So let's weave that back into our conversation about romance. And so our romance like genre is broken down into so many subgenres, and why that may seem pedantic to a lot of people, it is important to choose your niche and to know explicitly what you're reading, why you're reading it, and what is going to be involved. That's why we have trigger warnings. That's why we have all of these things, so that everything is consensual and nobody is surprised by what is happening. We're all kind of forewarned so that our feelings, right, can get invested in a safe kind of way. And that is one of the beautiful things that I think reading gives us, in that it is very personal and that we can choose very specifically what we want, right? And to take it. And then if we don't like it, we can set it aside. And it is, you know, it's different than like a visual medium where you're kind of like, those images are like burned into your brain forever, right? Like it's this different kind of experience. And I find that it is much more intimate than a lot of other things. So of course men would hate it. Of course, it's this deeply personal thing that you take the time to cultivate. And if you have the inkling or have, you know, the courage, because it's very hard, you can share all of this with your community online, with people, or kind of just with your friends. But even doing that takes a certain kind of bravery, because of everything that you have to fight against, all of these other opinions. Because as soon as you say, I have this book and it's a happily ever after, well, fuck you, that book sucks. Happily ever after sucks. Don't you want to get tied up and fucked in the ass? No, okay, sure, yes. But like, that is not what I chose at this moment. I'm going to go there when I'm ready, you know, and that is, again, feeling regulation. That is, you know, emotional maturity. That is knowing yourself and knowing what you do and don't like. And that is also, again, like publishers and trigger warnings, but
and learning about that too, because people use this as a medium to educate themselves. Curiosity is involved and a level of healing is involved, because some of those trigger warnings, you are being exposed to things that you might have been avoiding or you're trying to work through, and you are in a safe, controlled environment that you are controlling. And that's just as important. That being said, feel free to follow us on ACOFAE. We're so excited. I love when we have these conversations, Laura. Feel free to follow us on TikTok. We're both on ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. We're also on YouTube. Feel free to rate us 5 stars on all of your listening platforms. We appreciate y'all and talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.